Israel is in a political stalemate. It's on the verge of a third election in a year, as the current Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is indicted. But he's not the first. Another Israeli Prime Minister was impeached, convicted and served 60 months behind bars. EHUD OLMERT. He says Netanyahu's time has come. He also thinks Israel and Palestine need a two-state solution. I sat down with former Prime Minister EHUD OLMERT in this exclusive one-on-one for TRT World. Mr. OLMERT, thank you very much speaking to TRT World. Israel right now in a political stalemate. There is no stable government, and Netanyahu and Benny Gantz cannot compromise right now, and it looks like Israel is going to another polls in a third time in a year. How do you evaluate this situation?
This is my evaluation. I think that the realities are that there is not one bloc that can dominate the political situation, and therefore we have to go for a third round of elections, and there will be a third round of elections early 2020, I guess sometimes in March of the coming year. And I think that the next round of elections will ultimately determine the political direction.
So do you think whose fault was that? Because they couldn't form a government. There was a blame game between two leaders. Benny Gantz was saying it's because Benjamin Netanyahu. And Netanyahu saying that it was because of Benny Gantz. What's your position on that?
I'll tell you something. You know, I'm free to say what is the reality. I don't have to care about the polls right now. So I can say, Bibi Netanyahu is gone. He has come to the end of his career, and he's going to go to court, and I hope for him that he will be able to defend himself. But as Prime Minister, he's finished. Mr. Netanyahu, thank you very much for your service. You are unable to form a government. You tried once, you tried twice, you failed 2 times. Enough is enough. Leave us, and we will manage together with Kahol Lavan to form a government.
So maybe there might be another leader in Likud. We know that you dealt with Likud many times. Do you think that there will be another leader inside Likud aside from Benjamin Netanyahu?
The Likud is a legitimate party. I'm not a member of Likud anymore. I left Likud, I created Kadima, which won the elections in 2006, and I was the Prime Minister then. I think that there are many good people in Likud that could replace Netanyahu. One of them will replace him, but regardless of who will be the next leader of Likud, he will not be the next Prime Minister.
So you're expecting a new one for Likud leadership?
I think that there will be a new leader of Likud. I don't know to say at this moment who the next leader of Likud will be, whether it will be Mr. Katz or Mr. Saar or anyone else that may arise from the ranks of Likud. I don't know. But I think that there will be a new leader of Likud, but he will not be the Prime Minister. Likud will lose the elections.
So Netanyahu, Benjamin Netanyahu is the first incumbent sitting Prime Minister who has been indicted.
That's right.
And you went through that type of situation also. So do you think that he should resign because you resigned from your post?
I don't want to, look, you know, it's below me to go into this. I decided when I was Prime Minister that I didn't want to put myself in a position where as Prime Minister I'm indicted. And it doesn't have to do, I was absolutely confident in my innocence, and I still do. But it doesn't matter. You know, when you live within the framework of democracy, sometimes you have to suffer from the lack of justice, from the lack of compassion, from the lack of tolerance. This is, you know, in democracy, you have to accept it.
But during your time, he said that you should resign.
He said yes, and I thought that he should have resigned long ago. I mean, I thought so. But he didn't do it. And he actually forced the political bodies to go through 2 election campaigns, and now most likely a 3rd election campaign within less than a year time. But the outcome will be very, very painful to Netanyahu, because I think that He will lose the elections. He will have to stand in court. And from then on, it will not be in his hands anymore.
So during Benjamin Netanyahu's time, especially since Trump took the position of presidency in the United States, there were a number of decisions from the United States as Jerusalem as Israel's capital, annexed Golan Heights as Israeli's territory, and Neve decision from the United States saying that settlements in the occupied West Bank are not inconsistent with the international law. So it looks like for Palestinians, two-state solution is almost dead, because the United States lost its mediator position, because the latest decision looks like they are in favor of Israel, or pro-Israel. So do you think that two-state solution is dead, or there's another hope for that?
I want to be very clear and straightforward. There is no solution for the Israeli-Palestinian conflict other than a two-state solution. There will be a two-state solution, and it will be implemented in our lifetimes. I have no doubt about it. And to be honest with you, while I have a great admiration for the United States of America, and I feel like many Israelis do, that we have a great debt to the United States for the friendship, support, and cooperation with the State of Israel. To make peace with the Palestinians, we need no one. We don't need America, we don't need the Europeans, we don't need anyone. We have to do it directly with the Palestinians, and we can do it. And we can do it now. And the two-state solution is the only solution that can be implemented to make peace between us and the Palestinians. So the longer we wait, the more painful the process will be. Now, I don't want to go into all these discussions about what Trump did and what Netanyahu did. I can tell you only this, and this is what counts. What? The two-state solution means that 96% of the territories will be evacuated by Israel and will be administered and will be part of the Palestinian state. All the villages surrounding Jerusalem, Jabal Mukaber, Sheikh Jarrah, Isawiya, Shuafat, Abu Dis, all of these will be part of the Palestinian capital. The Holy Basin in Jerusalem will be administered by an international trust made of 5 nations: the Palestinians, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, America, and Israel. And it will not be sovereign neither by Israel nor by the Palestinian state. It will be an international trust under the guidance of the UN Security Council and the approval of the General Assembly of the United Nations.
So you stated many times, as you said now, Mahmoud Abbas is the partner for peace.
All right.
But from Israeli side, there are a number of people and analysts, journalists, politicians saying that Netanyahu is actually an obstacle for peace. From your equilibrium, I understand that you're saying that Palestinians are ready for peace, but Netanyahu's government or right-wing government are not ready.
I didn't make a commitment that the Palestinians are ready. I say that they will have to accept it. I don't know that they are ready. We'll have to sit with them. Netanyahu is history. He's not going to be the next prime minister, so why waste time about Netanyahu? Netanyahu's policies are unacceptable.
But it looks like he will stay in power, even though he has been indicted.
Few more months, that's all. He will lose the next elections. He already lost the last 2 elections.
In the third one, you're expecting another type of results then?
Yeah. Not another type, just along the same line of the last elections. In the last elections, the Likud lost 9 seats. In the next election, they will lose maybe about the same number of seats, and that will be it.
So
and
you say that
will not be in power.
Netanyahu's political career is over?
Yes.
He won't come back to politics, you
No.
say? Okay, let's go to security issues. Israel many times stated that Iran can attack Iran is trying to wipe us out in the Middle East. You stated that too. Do you think that there will be a military confrontation in the near future between United States and Iran, or Israel with Iran?
I can't speak about the United States, and I suggest that no one will even dare offer an opinion about what President Trump is going to do. How do I know? I don't know. I doubt that anyone around Trump knows what Trump is planning. So how can I say anything about it? Now, I can tell you this. I don't think that Iran is ready or is pushing towards a military confrontation with Israel. They know that in any military confrontation with Israel, Iran will pay a terrible price, which will be far beyond what they are prepared to do, what they need, and what they may want. So I don't think that they are moving forward towards a military confrontation with Israel. However, they want to establish their presence in the Middle East. They want to have an expanded influence over many different parts of the Middle East. And as a result of it, they also penetrated into Syria, and they have a military presence now in Syria. This is not something that we can tolerate. We will not tolerate it, and we'll do everything in our power to push them out.
Do you think that there is a balance of terror between Iran and Israel? We know that both of them are nuclear powers. They are nuclear capable.
Not balance of terror. I don't think that this is an appropriate term. I think that there is a balance of power. There is a balance of power, or military balance, between Israel and the Iranians. I think that war is not something that we need, and I'm absolutely certain that it is not something that they need. I think that if there will be a military confrontation between Israel and Iran, I don't think that they know that they can't defeat Israel, they can't destroy Israel, and I don't think that anyone in Israel wants to destroy Iran. We don't want to destroy Iran. Maybe we can. I don't know, but we don't want to. We don't want to. What do I have against the Iranian people living in Tehran or in Isfahan or in any other place in Iran? I have nothing against them.
Mr. Netanyahu many times complained about Iran's nuclear capability. For Middle East, and it won't be peaceful, it looks like, for Israelis. But we know that Israel has nuclear powers too, nuclear weapons too. In 2006, you accidentally admitted that too. So why we shouldn't worry about Israel's nuclear power, but on Iran's?
Number one, I don't know that we have ever admitted in having any nuclear capacity. Number two, the question whether Israel has it or not has it is immaterial. The question is, in principle, whether a country which appears to be belligerent and which makes public statements that it wants to destroy other countries should have the option of nuclear capacity. That's the main issue with Iran. America has nuclear capacity, Russia has nuclear capacity, China has nuclear capacity, you know, and of course France and Great Britain, they all have nuclear capacity.
Mordechai Vanunu in the 1980s
I don't know.
leaked the footage, leaked the photographs to the British media, and right after that, and British media claimed that you have more than 200 nuclear weapons. Look, so do you think that these are all lies?
Do you think that I have to accept what the British press said 20
but
years
it wasn't British. It was Mordechai Vanunu working in a nuclear...
Mordechai Vanunu never said these things. Mordechai Vanunu implicated that there may be some nuclear research which is done in Israel, and we never were hiding that we have a center for nuclear research. But there is a big difference between nuclear research for all kinds of peace purposes and nuclear power for military use. There are two different things. I don't know that we have nuclear capacity for military use. I don't know that we have ever threatened anyone with the use of nuclear bombs, and I don't think that Israel has anything to do with this kind of rhetoric.
So what's happening in Dimona now?
So
What is that?
I'm not in charge of the research in Dimona, so I can't tell you what's happening in Dimona, but I can only tell you one thing. I don't remember that we ever threatened the use of nuclear power against anyone. And we never threatened that we will destroy any country.
When United States, President Donald Trump decided to withdraw their army from northern Syria, there were a number of voices in Israel saying that and criticizing Donald Trump's decision. And I've read a number of comments from Israeli media that, and now United States is not a reliable partner for Israeli security. Do you think that in terms of that, do you think Israeli security is self-sufficient? Do you think Israel is self-sufficient in terms of security?
Is Israel capable of defending itself against any military threat, either by Hezbollah from Lebanon, or by Syria from Syria, or by Iran from Syria, or by Iran from Iran, or by any other organizations, Hamas? Israel is capable of defending itself. And I will tell you, and I'm not a man of war, although I was involved in commanding military operations while I was Prime Minister, unfortunately. But
you say unfortunately?
Of course. I never wanted to. But I couldn't tolerate the fact that Israel was attacked by thousands of rockets from the south or from the north and not respond. Every prime minister in every country, certainly in Israel, the primary responsibility of whom is to defend his citizens.
And you're accused of war crimes by United Nations, and you couldn't go Switzerland last time into
the only country in the world which I couldn't go, and I'm sure that I will be able to go.
So do you think maybe you will end up in Hague one day?
Don't worry for me. I don't think that this is the problem. There are many accusations, of war crimes against many people. And many leaders in the world.
Lots of people died there, and you just say
I killed terrorists, and I'm not going to apologize for killing terrorists. Israeli soldiers were attacked and killed and kidnapped by Hezbollah people. What do you think Israel should have done? Should have stayed still? No.
What about those civilians there? Do you think that those civilians
are just how many Israeli civilians were killed in the war against Lebanon as a result of the aggression of Hezbollah? When you fight war, and when you hold rockets in private residences, as they did, sometimes, unfortunately, not as a part of any strategy, sometimes uninvolved people suffer, and we regret every such case, and I personally certainly regret every such case, but we didn't start a war in Lebanon. It was forced against us, and thank God the Hezbollah understands the outcome of the war. And the fact is that in the last 13 years and more, they didn't shoot one time from across the border in Lebanon because they understand what was the price that they had to pay as a result of their aggression.
So since the beginning of Israel, 1948, the security conceptions from Ben-Gurion was actually trying to say Israel is surrounded by enemies and it should be self-sufficient. We're not good in quantity in terms of number, and we have to be good at quality. But I think you need external balance to balance those Middle Eastern countries. That's why United States is needed for your security. Let's say United States is saying that now we are withdrawing all of our troops from the Middle East. What would you do? Would you?
They have withdrawn most of their forces from the Middle East anyway.
Would you look for another partner for security in the Middle East?
The best guarantee for security is to make peace with your enemies. We made peace with Jordan. We have diplomatic relations with the Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan, now under the leadership of an admirable person, King Abdullah II. We have peace with Egypt, now under the leadership of General Assisi. He's a great Egyptian patriot and a great leader, and we have peace relations. We need one day, I offered peace to Syria, and I used the good services of President of Turkey, Recep Erdogan, that brokered between me and Assad. And President Erdogan knows very well, and I'm sure that he will confirm it, that I was ready to make all the necessary compromises. Unfortunately, Bashar Assad pulled out at the last minute. We could have made peace then also. So if you ask me, the best guarantee for security is peace. We need to make peace with the Palestinians, and I'm prepared to make peace, and I've proposed a pattern for peace, which I think is the best possible solution for the historical conflict between us and the Palestinians. I think that we have no reason for a conflict between us and the Hezbollah. We are not in Lebanon. We pulled out entirely from Lebanon. According to the United Nations, Israel does not occupy any centimeter of Lebanon. We pulled out from Gaza, and according to the United Nations, we do not occupy one piece of land in Gaza. Now we have to make an agreement with Palestinians in the West Bank.
Those Palestinians living in Gaza do not have any freedom of movement. So do you think that those doors should be open?
They have a lot of freedom of movement in Gaza, but they want to go to Israel, and maybe one day they will have a freedom to move back and forth, not to move to live in Israel, but back and forth. So when they will stop to shoot rockets at the Israeli people. For the time being, they shoot rockets. So how do you want us to allow them to come when they shoot rockets at Israelis day in, day out, all the time?
But there is no rocket firing from West Bank Area C, and they cannot move, they cannot come to Jerusalem.
Everyone in the West Bank can go in every part of Israel.
No, in Area C they cannot go.
Excuse me. They can go. They have to go through checkpoints in which they are checked to make sure that they are not terrorists. And if they are not terrorists, they can go to every part of Israel. And many Palestinians that live in the West Bank come back and forth to Israel all the time. And so, of course, those who live in Jerusalem.
I've talked many Palestinians living in Area C. They told me many times, and they showed their documents, that they are forbidden to go to Jerusalem. An American from thousands of kilometers can come and visit Jerusalem, but those Palestinians living in Area C, West Bank Area C, they cannot visit Jerusalem.
I'm sorry. I have a different knowledge. Every Friday, tens of thousands of Palestinians from every part of the West Bank come to Jerusalem to pray in Al-Aqsa. So, with all due respect, my knowledge of the realities on ground are different from the stories that some people want to tell you.
Many times you stated if there is no two-state solution, the only thing Israel will have is apartheid type of system.
I didn't use these terms, but I say that I can't tolerate any other situation but a two-state solution.
So do you think now Israel is in like an apartheid type of situation?
No, this is your terminology.
No,
this is not mine. I never said.
You said that.
Excuse me. I said that I can't tolerate any solution but a two-state solution. I never used the term apartheid. I don't think that there is apartheid, but I'm not happy with the present situation, and I think that it has to be changed. I don't want to govern and to control the lives of people who are not part of my nation, and they have to live in their own state, and this state has to be independent, and this is the nature of a two-state solution. I'm in favor of a two-state solution, and I've proposed this two-state solution to Abu Mazen, and unfortunately, as I said, I never heard his positive answer. I never heard his negative answer, but I never heard his positive answer.
So in this year, you attended a conference in Israel, and you just said to the audience that, do you want those Palestinians to vote for premiership? Just trying to talk about demography. If there is no two-state solution, those Palestinians would be members or would be citizens of Israel. So it looks like you didn't want them to be citizens of Israel.
I want them to be citizens of a Palestinian state.
Why you don't want them to be citizens of Israel?
I'm in favor of a two-state solution. They don't want to be part of the state of Israel, and we don't want them to be part of the state of Israel. They are Palestinians. They should have their own independent Palestinian state.
So you care about Israel's Jewish character?
Of course.
So that's why you want two-state solution? Is this what you mean?
No, I want two-state solutions because I don't want to control people that want to be independent. So I agree to a two-state solution, which has been the pattern that was adopted by the international community, by Europe, by America, by Russia, by China, by Japan. Everyone in the world accepts this. I accept it. And I hope that it will be implemented.
EHUD OLMERT, thank you very much.
Thank you.